Joining me now, my good friend, Bob Weiner. And Bob and I have been friends a long time. Bob, it's great to have you back with us. You do such a good job with so many young people. You know, Bob, before we get into the issues of the day, tell again our audience a little bit about what you do and how you've been so successful in training young journalists for so long, Bob.
Well, thanks so much, John. And by the way, you, one of the most influential talk radio show hosts, again, you've gotten that kind of press. You've gotten it from the Washington Post and many other places, and again, recently. So congratulations to you for what you do. My program is fun, John. When I left the Bush White House, I was in the Clinton-Bush White Houses. I formed a group of young journalists, recruiting college journalists from around the country, and we've won the National Press Club President's Award. They're the highest award for them being co-bylined with me in top papers. We've done 900 op-eds in top papers around the country. John, you're in Mississippi. That's decade after decade, the number one poverty, the highest poverty in the nation. And on December 26th, we had a piece with my group, with one of our young journalists, Zachary Filtz, and myself. Mississippi bills could let the state escape decades of the nation's worst poverty and show the whole country a way out. That was in the Holmes County Herald in Jackson. So there's an example of what we've done, and we pointed in that case to how the legislature's own bills that they reject year after year, but they're there to improve the housing, the education, the income level, the minimum wage. And empirically, those would take Mississippi out of poverty, but they refuse to pass them. And decade after decade, they have the worst poverty in the nation. So there is a way out, and we've written that. That's just an example of the pieces we've done. And I looked, what have we done in Mississippi? Because you have the courage to go there, John, and congratulations on doing that.
Well, Bob, not only am I in Mississippi, which has the highest level of poverty as the state of the nation, but I'm in the Delta, which has the highest level of poverty in Mississippi.
Wow.
So I am in Clarksdale, which is right in the center of the most poverty-stricken region in the entire country.
Wow.
Where 89% of the people here live under the poverty level. 99% of the high school students and middle school students and elementary school students, 98%, are on the meal program. What you have here, Bob, in the Delta, you have what I'm going to call systemic poverty. It's interesting. You come here, everything is dilapidated. I mean, like they had a storm here, all the signs got knocked down. You know, nobody's got the money to fix any of the signs. A lot of the buildings are falling apart. You go to downtown Clarksville, half of them are boarded up. But there's jobs here, and the jobs they're still on farms, sharecroppers, and things of that nature. They're in the service industry. And it's amazing the resilience, Bob, of these people. It's very inspiring because everybody I talk to, all they wanted to do was get back to work. And, you know, you talk about people that work, you know, we always hear, they work paycheck to paycheck, like every 2 weeks. These people, Bob, it's day to day. It's not paycheck to paycheck. It's day to day living here. And all they want to do, a lot of them, you know, they work at the hotels or the service industry or in fast food, or, you know, I went and had a problem with Verizon yesterday, and one of the ladies there, they had just opened the store back up, and, you know, she was furloughed for 4 weeks, and she's like, I just want to get back to work, you know, so I can get money and feed my family. But, yeah, I mean, all the things that you look at the school system in the Delta, and, you know, Mississippi ranks 48th.
Right.
If you took out the Delta, they'd rank 22nd. So it's not like they don't know how to educate. It's not like they can't figure out how to educate children. It's like they don't, but there's no money. They just leave it go. And part of the problem is the Delta is heavily blue. The state is heavily red. So they've also got a political issue. Does that make sense?
The governor's race was within 5, though. It's crawling toward equality.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tate Reeves, you know, should have won by 25. He won by 5. Yeah. And Espy is running against Cindy Hyde-Smith, and the polls right now have that within the margin of error. Look, as long as this clown show goes on with this coronavirus, and there's all these mixed messages, right. More people are dependent on the government. Now, I want you to get into, you think that Trump is right on China? Get into that a little bit, Bob.
Well, John, I want to make some news with you today. China has to prove that the COVID-19 didn't start in the Wuhan lab or shut it down. Do you know that the Washington Times reported, and people have forgotten this, that there are 2,000 viruses being studied there. 2,000. So which one could be next in terms of hitting us? And now that you've got the intelligence community and Pompeo and Trump himself saying that they're investigating the source of the virus, well, it's got to be more than investigating it. There's got to be actions. You know, when you and I were kids, John, we used to all joke about a China dirty bomb that would be a biological terror that would affect us all. We just got it. This is it. This is the Chinese dirty bomb, and the Chinese government has to prove with evidence where and how the virus started. They have to accept responsibility and stop putting out there that the U.S. military started it. You know, it's a clear diversionary strategy. And they have to take concrete steps to protect against the misuse or mistakes in their viruses or labs, even if this virus began naturally. If they need to temporarily at least shut down the Wuhan lab and announce it to give the world peace of mind, so be it. It's this situation that there are now, millions of cases and hundreds of thousands of deaths. And it's far worse than Russia's Chernobyl, John, where the International Energy Agency said caused 4,000 deaths and the Russians shut it down. So this is not a matter, and you've been so good at this, John, with your objectivity in terms of mixed messaging. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives alike have to admit that President Trump's signature issue from way before his presidential campaign has been forcing China out into the open and stopping their secret and illegal campaigns against trade, intellectual property, safety. Democrats since Gephardt's campaign of 2004, you remember that, have been campaigning against the reality of Chinese economic and safety assaults on the U.S., and now this shouldn't be any different, and Republicans should be on board. And Trump also is not wrong that the WHO, the UN's World Health Organization, stuck with Chinese propaganda that the coronavirus is not dangerous. When January 14th, the WHO tweeted, preliminary investigations conducted by the Chinese authorities have found no clear evidence of human-to-human transmissions of the novel. What is that BS? And Trump and Fauci wasn't right either. Fauci accepted that people forget that, we love Fauci. He's probably going to be Time Man of the Year and all that. But he and others also believed the WHO at the outset and downplayed the seriousness of the virus. And on February 19th, Trump told a group of governors, I think it's going to work out fine. But the future is what we care about, John, now. And China, as ground zero, has to protect both their own nation and the world and be honest about it. And the U.S. and all nations have to join together to persuade China to mandate that there's a concrete action and that China has to protect the health of the nation and the world. And now is the time. So how safe do we feel now with 2,000 viruses, John, being studied with no world oversight in the Wuhan lab? Which virus is next is my question.
Well, what are they studying, Bob?
What are they studying? They're studying these viruses. And it just takes one guy in the lab to release it. And there's an assistant secretary of state who's been talking about bioterrorism from China. This is not a new idea.
And remember, it was Fauci that was in favor of this Wuhan lab. And in fact, we sent him $7.5 million of taxpayer money through Dr. Fauci, who I'm not a fan of, obviously. But look, I mean, let's get to politics of this. Trump has been railing against China since he first got on the scene, right? Back when he was thinking about running as an independent in the Ross Perot party or whatever it was, he was railing about China then. So certainly, if there's anything that came out of this virus, it's exposed China for the evil rogue nation they are and how they've wrought havoc on everybody. So that's one good thing that's come out of it. But let's get to politics. I mean, you got Joe Biden, who basically his son took $1.5 billion from them in an equity fund. He's never held them accountable for anything. When Trump did the shutdown with the airlines, the travel coming into the U.S. from China, Biden called him a xenophobe. How does Biden reconcile this, Bob?
Well, it's a difficult thing, and Biden does not want. And I love Biden. I was in his kitchen when he announced for Senate, John. Where we go way back, and he had me come over and meet his family. And at Conyers' portrait unveiling, where they were both chairs of judiciary, Biden walked by, and I said to my wife, Pat, I think you may have met her. I was in his kitchen when he announced for Senate and went with. And Biden swung around, looked at Pat, and said, "That's exactly right." So I love Biden, but on this issue, he has admitted, and his son have admitted that they were wrong cosmetically in Ukraine. If there was money from China, there's back and forth on that, as you know, John. There's people say there really wasn't a penny involved, so I don't know the truth of the China issue. But on that stuff, at least Biden admits he was wrong. I want to hear Trump say he's wrong to have his kids, Ivanka and Jared, go running around with him, getting patents and making profits as he travels around the world. Where's the admission on that?
They've got to answer for that in this
right.
campaign. No question about it. They're going to have to answer to that. You can't throw stones and then do the same thing. So you got to.
Thank you for being so objective. That's right.
I mean, look, there's a lot of things that you get conflicted with. Jared's got a lot of businesses floating around that are kind of tied in. So all this stuff is going to have to be dealt with.
And the other thing, John, that just bugs me, bipartisan, because it's Feinstein, but it's Burr, the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. They had a briefing on the coronavirus, and Burr walked out, and so did Feinstein, and they sold their stock. Burr sold them over $1 million of stock as soon as that briefing was over. And Trump says, "Oh, I didn't know." It was the same briefing by the same people. Trump had the same secret briefing. And it was on how devastating the coronavirus gig was going to be.
Well, I think Barr and Feinstein need to own up to this. I mean, both of them have said, they didn't do anything wrong. Burr. I'm sorry. Burr and Feinstein also. I guess if there's one senator that you could maybe say, that would be Kelly Loeffler in Georgia because, I mean, she sold 1% of her stock. She sells a lot of it. But still, I mean, coming out of that briefing, any senator that sold any stock in any of the industries that they knew was going to get pummeled really should resign.
Of course.
Loeffler's defense is, it's only 1%. I don't care if it's 1% or 50%. The hell difference does that make?
It's insider trading. That's the definition of it.
And then for her, it's 1% because she's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. If it was me, it would be 100%.
Right.
So I don't know. The swamp is bipartisan. I mean, Bob, you look at, and I was saying this when it was happening, the lobbyists running around Washington during the negotiations for the 2.7 PPP stimulus.
Yes.
The lobbyists in their $10,000 Italian Armani suits and their $13,000 Rolex watches. I mean, they were swarming the Senate like cockroaches. It was disgusting. And, that's how they raped the fund for their clients for all that money, right? I mean,
so here's what I want to ask you, John. You're there in the heart of poverty in the Delta in Mississippi. How much of the PPP, how much of the benefits of the $2 trillion bill and now the $500 billion extra and all of that, how much of that is reaching any of those people, or are they just out of jobs and screwed because they don't know how to apply for the money?
No, I talked to cleaners yesterday. I brought my shirts in to get cleaned. He's got 2 employees. He got $9,000.
Okay, that's one.
It took him a month, but he got it. But part of the reason he got it is because he's been there 20 years and he's only got 2 employees that get $10 an hour. So he didn't get that much money, but it was, definitely helped him because as a cleaner, his business is way down. There's no teachers. Nobody's out with a suit on, so they're not getting their shirts clean like me and things of that nature. But he said that the only reason he got it is because he had a 20-year relationship with a bank, and
That's
they
right.
were able to help him with it. But he said a lot of his friends didn't get it because by the time they figured out how to do the paperwork, The money was gone because it was raped by the big corporations who got language in it to make them eligible. Should the Los Angeles Lakers have gotten $4.5 million, Bob?
Right, and Ruth Chris and all that. John, you're so right about the relationship with the bank. Let me rail on that one. I run my small journalist program out of the National Press Club, as you, thank you for mentioning that, and we're very proud of it. And we give the kids a little bit of money. So I applied. The problem is I have my account at the Congressional Federal Credit Union, where I've had it since I was on the Hill before I was over at the White House, and I've just kept it there. And because it's a sole proprietorship, it goes under my own name, so I can keep it under my own Social Security number and all of that. So I applied, and they told me, we don't do SBA get loans. Hey, this is a congressional bill. It just got passed. So what kind of ineptness is that the So they said you have to go to other banks. I went to PNC. I went to Bank of America, where my wife and I have a joint account, and they both said, you don't have a business account with us, and you have to have had it since February to apply through us for the. And then I went to SunTrust, which somebody recommended. They said, oh, you have to have had an account with us since February. That's before the bill was passed, for God's sakes. I didn't know I had to. So I wasn't able to get the $4,000 or $5,000 that would have been nice to keep my kids going for the couple of months. Wasn't able to get it because I didn't have a relationship with an existing bank, and it got so, it's not the end of the world, $4,000, so I'll just deal with it anyway. But that's what happened in my case, and I wonder how many people around the country have that kind of problem where because they didn't have a relationship with the bank, they couldn't apply.
Tens of thousands. But hey, here's what J.P. Morgan did. J.P. Morgan prioritized their customers that had a $25 million balance. So if you had a $25 million balance, they went to your office and they shepherded your paperwork through for millions of dollars. Now, even though $10 million is the maximum, what a lot of these companies do is they have separate regional companies.
Right.
So they got $10 million in New York, $10 million in California, $10 million in Texas, $10 million in Illinois, $10 million in Des Moines, and so they get $50, $60, $70 million. Completely subverted the purpose of it. Public companies have access to all kinds of credit, but they drain the fund. And who was right behind it, Bob? Who was right in the middle of it? J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, every single bank that screwed middle America during the 2008 crisis took the money, took their homes, threw them out on the street. Every single one of those gangster banksters, guess who was right in the middle of the lobbyists and the big company? Can you imagine? They were prioritizing customers that had a $25 million balance. That's the customers that got the money first. It's sickening. And then you come to the Delta and you got a little cleaners trying to get $7,000 so he can keep his employees fed. It's sick, Bob. It's sick. But that's the system we're in.
Despite that problem,
and it's the same ones, Bob. Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, it's all the same. They get richer and richer, and the little guy here gets nothing, and it happened again.
So despite that problem that you're talking about, Mitch McConnell calls the Senate back in the middle of the pandemic so that he can confirm his friend, a judge, and not deal with the coronavirus issues like this. And I really think, by the way, how do Pelosi, this is bipartisan, how do Pelosi and McConnell not say that the legislators are essential and should be tested to get work done, speaking of which, so that both sides could be back? That one blows me away a little bit. I'm not hung up on the ego of that. It's not like getting special interest. These are our legislators, the House and Senate members, who should be tested so they could actually do their work.
I got one comment to that. Get your ass back to work and out of your pajamas, right? Come to Washington and get your butts to work, or stop getting paid, right? Let's furlough the whole bunch of them, or get your butts to work. Bob, I got to go. Thank you, Bob Weiner. Always great to have you, man. Great.
It's a pleasure, John. You are so objective.
Radio Network.